Uchin Amini is the Chief Market Strategist at Igu Global Markets. Part of what you have heard from Carlos Lopez, the former UN Executive, UNECA Executive Secretary, is that there will be consequences for Africa if the current development in tariff wars between Washington and Beijing goes ahead. Nigeria is one of the countries whose commodities is primarily oil, but with battling a few things, among them the liberalization of the downstream sector, which is still one of the unfinished business of the current administration. So what's been going on and what's the outlook from the industry? This was a one-on-one that Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, had with the moment president, that's the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, the president, Tunji Oyebanji, who's also the managing director and CEO at Double One PLC, had with Temple 2 days ago. Take a listen to this.
I think at the end of the day, we can't really run away from the fact that, you know, when you operate a fixed price, fixed controlled environment, it doesn't really allow the operators to, you know, operate freely in the economy. So there are a lot of challenges in this regard. So we have always preached liberalization, deregulation of the industry. We believe with that, more investment will flow into the downstream. Ultimately, that will benefit the consumers and will take the huge burden of subsidy off the government. So ultimately, I believe that is the solution. Any other thing we're doing is just an interim thing, which ultimately, at the end of the day, would not be sustainable.
But do you think the fear of inflation is the reason why the federal government is foot-dragging on this matter of deregulation or liberalization?
Well, there are a lot of things. It would be remiss of me to sit here to say the process of deregulation is easy or it can happen overnight, that kind of thing. I don't think that it would be right to assume that. It's not an easy thing to do. But ultimately, it's like the case of, you know, a child that is sick and they tell you that the child will die if the child does not have surgery. But the surgery has certain risks associated with it. So at the end of the day, you have to make a choice to take the risk and have that surgery, because if you don't, the child will die. Today, Nigeria is borrowing a lot of money, as you know. People put estimates of what we're spending on subsidy or under recovery, as if you want to call it that. They put estimates at around 1 trillion naira a year. We're borrowing maybe even more than that annually. But in reality, you don't find people on the streets because we are borrowing so much money. I mean, a few days ago, the immediate past Minister of Works, Power and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, said that an infrastructure bond of 10 trillion naira would help address the infrastructural gap in Nigeria. That's a huge amount that we would have to borrow. And yet, when you look at what is being paid on subsidy annually, that's maybe 10 years worth of subsidy. So the question is, do we want to go and borrow that kind of money or finance it through this means? So I think the issue is that it's probably easier because people, the man on the street may not understand the implications of that huge borrowing, but he understands the implication of if prices go up. So sometimes it's easier to make the choice to go in the area of least resistance, but it's not sustainable. That's the message we continue to put across, hoping that at some point we can make that decision to change in the right direction.
So how much of your debts have been settled now?
Well, we must commend the government. The government has done very, very well. You must remember that most of those debts are inherited debts, some 4 years ago. And I would say about between 2/3 or probably up to 70% have been paid through the instrument of promissory notes, which, as you know, is not cash. you have to further discount if you want to get cash for those promissory notes. But having said that, we must be grateful for the efforts of the government. This has brought relief to a lot of players in the industry. Unfortunately, for some, it's too late because, as you know, AMCON has foreclosed many fuel depots around the country simply because people cannot service their loans. People have actually closed shop and had to lay off staff in some cases. So it's not the best, but we thank government for what they have done, and hopefully in the not too distant future, whatever is left will be paid.
How bullish are you on the Dangote refinery?
Well, what I believe is that will be a game changer for the industry. Some may argue that that might even be a good time to target complete deregulation, since more of the production is going to be local, so you don't have to import as much. So really, we look forward to it coming on stream. It's a major, massive undertaking. So we're hopeful that that will come in on stream. I'm not exactly sure when that will happen, but definitely will make a lot of difference, and it will put Nigeria in a position where possibly we will move from being a net importer to a net exporter of refined products, which ultimately is better for the country. Having said that, I think the other refineries too, we need to make a decision about them. They've been more or less moribund for so long, producing at very, very low capacity levels. Again, that is not good. It's almost as if these are assets wasting. So you either make a decision that, you bring in people who are prepared to invest in those assets, or you actually sell them off. Either way, you need to make a decision, because as it is now, they're not being beneficial to the country. So again, these are part of the decisions that we need to make. But it's easier to make all this happen within a liberalized, deregulated market.
Oyebanji, the president of Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, one-on-one with Temple Ashaju, business correspondent. China has issued a formal statement of response to Donald Trump's move to impose 10% additional tariffs on $300 billion Chinese goods into the U.S. effective September the 1st. What did the Chinese say? After the break.